Thanks for joining us on Shannons Club TV, the program celebrating cars in Australia for their achievements on the road and in competition. In each episode, we uncover what made our feature car stand out and take a road trip in an owner's example.
We'll also get the latest market updates from the Shannons auctions team. So let's take a look at the Aussie family sedan that helped Ford to rediscover its high-performance heritage, the EB Falcon.
The EB facelift was one of the cosmetically least significant in Falcon history, but behind that relocated blue oval, now in the centre of the grille, lay a major mechanical upgrade. For the first time since electronic fuel injection was introduced at Easter 1983, a V8 engine rejoined the options list. The electronically injected Windsor 5 litre developed 165 kilowatts and was some 90 kilograms lighter than the 4.9 and 5.8 litre units manufactured locally from 1972 to November 1982. All EBs got uprated springs, gas dampers and new suspension geometry. Handling was much improved. The Falcon S got the full treatment with front spring rates 39% stiffer and the rears up by 25. A special new SXR8 variant seemed tailor-made for series production racing. Mark, do you think Ford Australia did in fact develop the XR8, especially with racing in mind?
Well, it certainly had the right ingredients. You had the return of the V8 engine, as you've mentioned, a very fine handling chassis by Tickford Vehicle Engineering. And we did see XR8s in action in production car races like the James Hardy 12-hour at Bathurst. The problem for the XR8 was that the rules for the Australian Production Car Championship at the time were framed around six-cylinder sedans. And for that, Ford built a very special version of the EBS, which I'll get to a bit later on.
Every EB variant was upgraded with the Fairmont almost equivalent to the previous EA Fairmont gear. As for the gear, it effectively became a sports sedan with the stiffer suspension, BBS alloys and special front seats. Late in 1992, two important new Tickford variants joined the range, the SXR6 and the 25th anniversary GT. Disappointingly, the GT had no more go than the much cheaper SXR6 launched just weeks beforehand, while failing to match rivals such as the Alfa Romeo 164Q and Saab 9000 Turbo. Just 250 EB GTs were built in cobalt blue, cardinal red or black pearl. You could have auto or manual. It was lavishly equipped. While the cobalt blue would have been my choice, Ford Australia had trouble with colour depth and had to drop it. Even worse, few of the engines actually made the promised 200 kilowatts. But this new generation GT had brilliant dynamics, flat handling, an absolutely poised balance, a supple ride and steering full of feel were its trademarks. I seriously wanted one. But one question remained. Why couldn't the same mechanicals be bought in a much cheaper car? What if you wanted your steak sandwich in a paper bag instead of on the Royal Dalton? That answer came later in the form of the XR8 Sprint. Mark, is the Falcon XR8 Sprint a forgotten Australian supercar?
Oh, I think so, for the reasons that you've outlined there. But Ford also made a high-performance version of the EB Falcon, which is the rarest of them all. The immortal Falcon GTHO is usually the first car that springs to mind in any discussion about rare Aussie Fords that were built in small numbers specifically to go racing. However, 2 decades later came another rare Falcon designed with competition in mind, and Ford built only 10 of them. The little-known EB2 Falcon SS, or EBSS for short, released in 1992, was designed with one job in mind: to win the Australian Production Car Championship. The rules at the time were framed around six-cylinder family sedans, so it was no surprise that Ford and Holden produced special versions of Falcons and Commodores to win. Holden's solution was in effect a 3.8 litre V6 version of its V8 SS Commodore, which Ford countered with its 4 litre inline-6 EBSS, based on the latest Series 2 version of the popular EB Falcon S model, with an extra S added to the name and upgrades to engine, transmission, suspension and particularly braking thanks to Ford's new ABS option. The EBSS duly delivered by winning the 1993 title. John, the EBSS, I mean, that's a very, very rare factory-built Ford race car. Where would you find one now if they only made 10?
Well, they're 10, and that was just for homologation purposes. I would think that is the rarest ever. And do any still exist? Do we know?
How would we know? But I mean, looking back at that era, that early 90s era with the EAS and then of course the EBSS, Ford got very, very clever at making hot six sedans that went very hard on the racetrack.
They certainly did, absolutely right. Yes. I remember at the Winton 300, for example, in 1990, the Yulden EA just kept coming up in the mirror of my Corolla, and every time I saw a red car like that on the road, I thought of the Winton 300. Yeah, they were very effective, and they were nearly as quick as the turbo cars of just 2 or 3 years earlier. In fact, I think they were as quick.
Yeah, it was a great era. The EB Falcon also played a starring role when Australian touring car racing underwent a major change for 1993 with the axing of the turbo-dominated International Group A class in favour of a new set of homegrown touring car rules framed around Ford's EB Falcon V8 and Holden's VP Commodore V8. With 5-litre V8s and wild-looking wings and spoilers, this thundering new breed, which soon became known as V8 supercars, was designed to deliver fast, loud and close racing. And the EB Falcon certainly grabbed its fair share of the early spoils, with Glenn Seaton winning the 1993 Australian Touring Car Championship before Dick Johnson and John Bowe teamed up to win the thrilling 1994 Bathurst 1000. The EB Falcon, in either Hot 6 SS trim or as a highly modified V8 supercar, proved to be a prolific winner in the early 1990s and one of Ford's most successful racing models. Don't forget, you can find your favourite car club or event on the Shannons Club website.
My name's Steve. I'm from down on the Morney Peninsula. This is a 92 EB Falcon GT. I've had the car for 3 years and absolutely love it. It was just a perfect car. Made it special was that it was the anniversary of the XR GT. They were built in Ford and then were shipped to Tickford and modified there, where they were enhanced with the body kit, which consisted of the front bar, the rear bar, side skirts, fairing moulds, the bonnet scoops and the rear wing. The grills are GT alone. They help to extract hot air from under the bonnet. Engine-wise, these were the first model V8 with fuel injection. They had a different manifold and probably tweaked it a little bit to supposedly get them up to 200 kilowatts, just to give them that bit more punch over the XR8. I've been insuring with Shannons for a number of years now. I have never ever had a problem with them. They've always been great. They insure my daily drive. There were a limited run of 250 for Australia. This is build number 5. It's got a plate under the bonnet and inside the door. Just makes them that little bit more special. I love this car because it's sort of caught between old and new. You still feel like you drove it, but it's comfortable to drive long distance. It just travels the countryside really, really well. And Dick Johnson driving these around Mount Panorama was always awesome.
Shannons National Auctions Manager Chris Borobon joins us with a market update on the EB Falcon. Welcome, Chris.
Hi, John.
Welcome,
Mark.
The EB Falcon, it's really interesting. You mentioned earlier that you don't see these things at the auctions, but you know, this was when Ford rediscovered performance. You know, it was the return of the V8 engine, it was the return of the GT.
The GT badging, yep.
You know, we had the Tickford tie-up with the XR6 and the XR8, the XR8 Sprint. I mean, there was a real push of excitement here, but it doesn't seem to have translated over the years to the collectible market.
Yes, they're far and few, and I think probably the survival rate is not very high in some of the variants. So it's an interesting one, really, the EB. But as you said, the interesting factor with that car is that was really the relaunch into the new V8 racing.
Exactly.
Well, Jack Nasser was driving all that, putting the 5-litre Windsor V8 back into the Falcon, making it more competitive with the Holden again. It really was a resurgence for Ford Australia.
Yeah. Are there sleepers out there? What about the EB2 GT? I mean, that's a car, what is that doing price-wise?
Yeah. Look, I think they're holding their own, actually. I think if we compare that to an XR6 and XR8 variant, the GT is probably worth, 5-6 times more.
Yes.
So it is holding its own. There's not too many out there, but it's a key of finding a car with a low Ks, the right service history.
Yeah.
So I think there's probably still a place in the heart of collectors for the GT, and I think the opportunity is really for the XR6 and the XR8 variants. If you can find the right car, that's probably worth
very good value with the
Yes.
potential to be a future
It's worth
classic.
more money, yeah. The smart thing would be to get hold of one of the forgotten cars, and I think of the XR8 Sprint as the forgotten supercar, really, because that had the EB GT mechanicals in a cheaper package.
But there's also probably less obvious classics in that group, like a beautiful mint condition Fairmont Gear V8 or a Fairmont V8 wagon.
Imagine finding a V8 wagon.
Now that would be a very rare car.
Yeah, it would be.
The EB Fairmont Gear had the BBS alloy wheels and leather seats
lots of nice
and
stuff.
lowered suspension. It was really a sports sedan with luxury features.
I mean, the overview to me seems to be the EB and the EB2. They're like a sleeper in the pack. Like they're asleep price-wise and desirability-wise. But, one day are they going to suddenly, find that appeal? Yeah.
Look, they're incredibly good buying right now. So it's probably an opportunity if you can find the right car, low Ks, great condition.
That's what you're looking for.
That's what you're looking for. You don't want to go and buy one that needs to be restored because there's no money in it right now. But I think if you can find the right car, it's probably worthwhile.
Yeah, good stuff. Thanks, Chris.
And remember, you can find all the latest auction news on the Shannons Club website. If you'd like a memorable competition image of the EB Falcon, check out the archive at autopics.com.au.
Yeah, it's interesting reflecting on the EB, isn't it? I mean, its predecessor, the EA, I remember that car was sort of rushed to market.
Rushed to market before it was ready.
Yeah, it had a number of quality control issues, but the EB, and particularly the EB2, they really ironed out all those problems, didn't they?
It was a far better car, yes, absolutely. It was really the car that the EA should have been when it came to market, but it's easy to say that after the event.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes. We hope you've enjoyed this look back at the definitive EB Falcon, and we'll catch you next time on Shannons Club TV.